Right, so hello and welcome back to Books and Things and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be doing a TBR for the Recommendations Readathon, which is hosted by Amanda Center and Acacia Ives. So this readathon, the Recommendations Readathon, is happening between the 6th and the 14th of April, so that's like a week and a little bit, and is run by Amanda Center and Acacia Ives, and basically the idea of the readathon is to read books that have been recommended to you by other booktubers, which I thought sounded really fun. I mentioned in the catch-up video I did about a month ago that I didn't think I'd be able to take part in that many short-term readathons, because now that I work in fiction publishing I have quite a lot of reading to do for work, which is often not that predictable. However, I'm actually on holiday for the second half of this readathon and have quite a lot of plane travel and long journey time, so I might actually manage to get through quite a few books for this readathon, which I thought could be really fun because I really like the idea of kind of combining booktuber shoutouts and a readathon into one glorious thing. So I have 6 books that I've put on my TBR for the Recommendations Readathon. I might not get to all of these, I might get to more than this, but these are a few books that I would like to read that I have been inspired to pick up by other booktubers. 4 of these are very new books and 2 of them are books that have been sat on my TBR for quite some time. In no particular order at all, here I have Normal People by Sally Rooney. This is a proof copy that a friend gave to me, and I have been quite sceptical about Sally Rooney for a while. Everything everyone said about Conversations with Friends, about how much they loved it, made me think that it was absolutely 100% not for me at all. However, the more I hear about Normal People, the more I feel like I should give it a try. It might not be my kind of thing, but I haven't heard very many people ever say anything bad about it, and it does sound intriguing. This, I believe, follows 2 people who meet at school and have a kind of on and off romantic / friendship relationship running through into their adult years. So, there are 2 booktubers, I would say, who are responsible for me wanting to read this book. One is Leanne Rose. This was her favourite book of 2018. I will link that video down below. She loved it an awful lot. And we don't have the exact same taste in books, but I also do trust her opinion, and I'm curious to read a book that I know how much she loved. And the other person who I would say is responsible for me wanting to read this is Simon from Savage Reads, mostly because he really loved it and he thought he wouldn't. And I think a lot of his reservations about Sally Rooney are a lot of my reservations about Sally Rooney. And he then read Sally Rooney and really loved Sally Rooney and forgot all of the reservations he'd had. So maybe I will too. So I'm going to give this a try and we'll see whether or not it is for me. I'm not certain, but I would like to try. And it's not that long, so we'll see how it goes. Next we have The Mermaid and Mrs Hancock by Imogen Hermes Gower. This is a historical fiction novel set in the late 18th century and following several characters, including a man who discovers that his ship has been sold for a mermaid instead. So I have heard a lot of very good things about this. This has been a real booktube darling and a lot of people have loved it. I have been suspicious of it, as with Normal People, mostly because I've heard a lot of people compare it to The Crimson Petal and the White and say how similar it was to The Crimson Petal and the White and how much they loved it because they'd loved The Crimson Petal and the White. I did not love The Crimson Petal and the White. I will link a video review I did of that below. I really didn't like it. And this book sounds in some ways similar to that, and that makes me nervous. However, my friend Marissa from Blatantly Bookish recently read this and absolutely loved it, and I trust her taste very much. I think we have incredibly similar taste. I can't think of very many books we've disagreed on at all. I think she likes The Handmaid's Tale slightly more than I do, and I like Mansfield Park slightly more than she does. Otherwise our bookish taste is basically the same, so I feel like if she liked this, I will also like this, and I trust her opinion a lot. I will link her review video on it down below, and her review definitely made me think, okay, I need to forget the fact that people are comparing it to The Crimson Petal and the White and just read it on its own, for its own worth, and hopefully fall in love with it too. I then have The Gustafsson Otter by Rose Tremaine. This follows the friendship between 2 young boys, I believe just sort of after the Second World War, maybe during and after, I'm not completely certain. But I've wanted to read this ever since Holly Dunn from Holly Dunn Design spoke about it. I will link her video where she talked about it down below because she just had such high praises for it and loved it so much, and that makes me think that I will love it a lot too. Holly Dunn is someone whose book taste I really appreciate and really trust, especially when it comes to historical fiction. It was due to her that I read A Place Called Winter by Patrick Gale, which was one of my favourite books of last year and which I loved an awful lot, and I suspect this is a book I'm really going to love as well. She has such good taste and she just, yeah, she really made me want to pick this one up. Next I have Autumn by Ali Smith. This is a book that I bought quite a while ago, just about when it came out, after Jen Campbell had reviewed it and said how much she absolutely adored it. And her video, which I will link down below, her review video of it was so passionate and so much in love with this book that I immediately bought it and thought, yes, I'm so excited to read this. However, My enthusiasm for Ali Smith has waned a little bit since then. Since I bought this, I read another book of hers which I'd owned previously called The Accidental, which I didn't like at all. When I read How to Be Both, which is the first thing I read by Ali Smith, I completely fell in love with her writing style, and it seemed so suited to the book and it seemed so amazing and so different. And then I read some of her short stories, which I quite liked, and then I read The Accidental and I thought, actually in this book, the writing style is getting in the way of the story and it's confusing. And I didn't find it impressive like I found it in How to Be Both. I just found it confusing and muddling and a bit irritating. And I know Ali Smith is a very beloved author on BookTube, and I think that's partly because quite a lot of people on BookTube who read literary fiction have more experimental and more literary taste in literary fiction than I do. What I really like is more sort of reading group fiction than literary fiction. It's kind of the accessible end of literary fiction and the kind of more upper market end of commercial fiction. That's like where my reading taste lies. However, I would like to give Ali Smith a second try, especially because I know how much Jen and many other booktubers love Ali Smith and loved Autumn in particular and thought it was fantastic. And I remember watching Jen's video and being like, this sounds incredible, I must order this at once, and which I did. So I feel like I need to give this a try. I know it's not autumn, I know this is spring and I'm rereading it at the wrong time, but I also kind of just want this off my TBR. After I've read this, I will have read 5 books by her, and maybe at that point I'll be like, okay, maybe her writing's not for me, I'll leave her. Or maybe I'll fall back in love with Ali Smith and buy all the rest of her books and read them, I don't know, but I need to give this a try, I need to finally get to it. Jen recommended it and I trust her judgment. I know that my book taste is not exactly the same as Jen's, but I also have a real appreciation for her book taste, so I'm gonna give this a try. We'll see how it goes. Next I have Dandelion Wine by Ray Bradbury. This is a book I've been meaning to read for ages and that has been on my TBR for quite a while and that I keep on thinking about reading and not getting it quite round to it. I read Fahrenheit 451, I think those are the right numbers. I read that book by Ray Bradbury a few years ago and really, really loved it, and since then have just been meaning to read more by him. And there are 2 booktubers I would hold responsible for my owning this book. One is Yamini from The Skeptical Reader. I can't link the video where she talked about this anymore because she's taken down quite a lot of her old videos, but I remember when she was reading this, she posted a picture of a quote from it on Twitter or Instagram, I'm not sure. I remember reading that quote and just like these 5 lines from this book brought tears to my eyes. I can't remember what it was, but I read that and I was like, that sounds incredible. And so I got this book, but I haven't yet read it. So Yamini is responsible for my acquisition of the book, and I would hold Olivia Pope responsible for my kind of renewed interest in it recently and really wanting to finally get to it. This is one of Olivia's favourites and she reread it last summer in the Booktubeathon, and that kind of piqued my interest again, and then it's still been sat on my shelf. So I need to finally get round to reading Dandelion Wine. It is very different from Fahrenheit 451. I believe it follows a kind of semi-autobiographical, semi-memoir, but partly fictionalized account of like Ray Bradbury's childhood in America, and it just sounds, yeah, just sounds like my kind of thing. Finally, I have a non-fiction book. This is A Victorian Lady's Guide to Fashion and Beauty by Mimi Matthews, and this was very kindly sent to me as a review copy by Pen and Sword. I was watching a video from Lil from Lil's Vintage World, who is fantastic and who does great reviews of many books, including history books, and she included this book in her favourite books of 2018, and I remember watching that video and thinking, wow, that sounds like a book that I need in my life, and so I went and requested a review copy of it immediately. Pen and Sword are a great publisher who I really like, and this sounds really, really up my street. I love the Victorians a lot. I'm very interested in Victorian fashion and Victorian ideas about beauty, and also Victorian fashion really confuses me because they change like the kind of dresses you're supposed to wear like every 5 years, and as someone who writes a lot of historical fiction, I really, really need to know more about Victorian fashion because it's very confusing. So maybe this will help me, and I think it will be good fun as well. So there we have it. Those are 6 books I might read for the recommendations readathon. Let me know if you're planning on taking part in this readathon and if you've made a TBR video because I'd love to see it, and also if you've read any of these books and if you would like to recommend them again, please do. And that is all for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with another bookish video.